I'm Dominic Sarantonio.
Chris Stribley.
We are Cera Stribley. I'm here to present to you the cellar door at St Hubert's. So St Hubert's is one of the oldest wineries in the Yarra Valley region, established in 1862. So with that comes a very strong heritage with the site, and with that we really wanted to ensure that whatever we're doing on this site paid respect to the site's history. The story of St Hubert was derived, well, the name St Hubert's was derived from St Hubert, who was an avid hunter, and this idea of the hunt led us to think about the site in this way. We are only presenting the cellar door today, but this project is part of a larger master plan that has the cellar door. We have a restaurant, there's a function centre, there's a chapel, and then there's a hotel coming in stage 2. Why is that important? It was more about thinking about how these moments in the hunt can, I suppose, allow us to think about architecture slightly differently. The cellar door is the encounter moment, and that really, I'll talk to that in a little bit. In terms of the design response, these were the existing conditions on the site. There were some agricultural sheds that you can see there that were for the use of the winery. And part of what we wanted to do was not use those existing sheds because they were fairly run down, but recreate 2 architectural buildings that paid homage to those sheds. There's a fairly iconic St Hubert's sign on one of the roofs, and so we've replaced that as it's highly visible from the Maroondah Highway. In terms of how we were thinking about the site, the brief from the client was to create these various functions, so the function centre, the wine centre, and the restaurant. With the wine centre, we felt needed to be special, and we felt it needed to talk to a different architectural language than the 2 agricultural sheds. So by pulling it out and then pulling it closer to the vineyard itself, it started to talk to that idea of a counter and really touching and feeling those vines. One of the important aspects of this project when we started working on it was how can we be quite sympathetic to the landscape. So we actually, in thinking about it, we were trying not to create a building. We wanted something almost to be invisible. So actually lifting up the landscape and almost hiding the cellar door was an approach that we thought was quite suitable and quite appropriate for the site. By lowering the cellar door halfway into the ground as well, it also allowed views from those function centre and the restaurant. And you can see how our green roof really helps almost disguise the building. And you can see that lovely eyelid shape as it opens out to the east.
In terms of sustainability on the project, so we've actually got full black water recycling here. So it's been set up with in a sewer plant about 500 metres away. It all goes to feed the grapes. If the grapes don't need water, there is an additional downstream built which it gets recycled into. Additionally, being quite a large site, we had a lot of opportunities. All the soil that was dug out was spread out over the existing paddocks to the left, which future grapes will be planted on in the next year or 2. And then all the concrete on site from all the existing sheds was ground up and used as road base as well. Basically, having a large site, they could store the material and reuse it, rather than tipping it away. The green roof obviously is a great insulator, so we're just using we've obviously got air, we do have conditioned air, but we are using heat recovery system to get fresh air in through, there's 2 slots through each side you can't see, which is bringing fresh air in and out.
Part of the original design was that we'd actually reinstate the vines rolling right down to the gallery, but through the evolution of the project, clients saw an opportunity to create an actual amphitheatre. So the idea is that they could use this for small concerts, Day on the Green, those type of things later in the track. So in many ways, I think the flexibility of the site is actually quite good. You can see how we've reinstated the St Hubert sign, which is highly visible from the Maroondah Highway. And you know, part of the strategy for the cellar door is, I mean, you can obviously, it's quite discreet when looking at it from the air, but some of the more distant views from the highway, it also reads quite, well, it's quite hard to read. The eyelid itself is a copper, is clad in a copper on top and underneath, which, you know, I think provides a nice touch to the edge of the cellar door.
It was actually done by the local guy in Colston, by chance. I found a guy that worked locally and did it all.
This is some views of the entry. It's a natural concrete finish with a board form cast with a beautiful big bronze door which celebrates that entry point. The entry actually narrows to create that special moment when you get into the cellar door, and it creates that crescendo, so to speak. So when you walk into the cellar door, you really do feel like you're part of the vineyard with that large expanse of glass out to the terrace. There's a large circular skylight which is cut through the grass roof, which again adds to the theatre of that entry experience. Obviously using a sculpture that was custom made for the site with the stag head, which is the St Hubert's feature wine. Here are some shots of the internals.
So we've put in a special acoustic ceiling, obviously with the shape of it and the hard finishes. That was one of the issues we had to come up with a solution to. So it's called Fade if you're ever looking for it. It's a plasterboard foam system that picks up all the acoustics, but you can get a solid finish on it. Works really well. It's been amazing. That was a big success on this one.
That's wonderful.
And the green roof, it's one of those beautiful moments, I think, in architecture where you unexpectedly find that, you know, it almost has become a playground for children. We didn't anticipate that as part of the design process, but you go there now on a Saturday afternoon and there's kids running up and down and rolling around, which is something I think is quite special from my perspective anyway.
Walking the skylight, they like to get up and walk on the skylight.
This is the view from the other side of the restaurant and the function centre, and you can see how we're framing those views into the cellar door, into that main entry. And you can actually, it's a beautiful shot because you can actually see the vineyard beyond, which I think is quite lovely. That's it.
Can you just maybe go back to the plan? I just need to make sure we understand, maybe there. So, I think I've understood correctly. The two sheds, you replace them, but they're not part of this project. Is that right?
No, well they are, but for the purposes of the awards, we've separated the cellar door as a separate project because in terms of the architecture, it's the special building we see in the project.
Right.
In terms of our involvement is throughout the whole project.
Because that leads to the next question. I just want you to expand, if you wouldn't mind, a little bit. They're so strikingly different strategies. You've touched on it.
Yep.
Just tell us more about sort of that approach, I guess. So you replaced, with the St Hubert's, those two sheds, you replaced them, not part of this, but it's part of the whole thing?
Yeah.
Just
So
it's the key part of it, isn't it?
firstly, there's two different operators.
Right,
So Tribute Wine Estates run the cellar door,
right,
and the function centre of the restaurant are run by Ryan Hospitality Group.
right.
In terms of our kind of design approach, the brief from the client was that they wanted the cellar door to be really something special because it was going to be for Treasury wines. So the brief was for it to be special and different. From our perspective, we saw a great opportunity to pay homage to the history of the site by reinstating those shed-like structures on the site. Obviously, the cellar door was different, so by choosing to create a piece of architecture that was actually quite discreet and feeling part of the landscape was part of the strategy. So it was almost like that cellar is not there. I mean, obviously it is there, but the strategy was to try and make that building feel quite discreet, and the existing sheds on the site almost reinstated.
But those existing sheds are part of the entry sequence, if I'm understanding correctly. You
Yep.
go up to that sort of circular
Correct.
roundabout, that's the drop-off, you walk
Yes.
across, you go through the threshold between the sheds
Yes.
that frames it,
Yes.
and then you go down, that's
Correct.
how it's all kind of,
Yeah.
I kind of see.
Yeah, that's
Okay, sorry,
That's just 2 minutes.
There's nothing else?
I just wanted to sorry, I know we're over time, but once you enter, you don't really stand kind of to the bottom of the page looking back.
No, so
So
you do
that-
see it, if you ever drive in Colsham, you do see that view as you're
Yeah.
coming over the Maroondah.
Yeah.
So it's got a really nice view of it there. And then you'll find, like if you head there on a weekend, people just walk the whole day. So you do see a lot of people out there.
The view from the Maroondah Highway is actually quite beautiful because you actually don't see this part. You really just see the top.